Hello again. I've been observing with interest and pleasure the very different way that the men, during the hearing of the inquiry into the Horizon IT fiasco at the post office, behave, and the way that the woman giving evidence there has been behaving. The men perfectly composed and speak in measured and thoughtful tones, but when the woman at the centre of the business gave her evidence, she had to keep reaching for a box of tissues as though she was in a therapy session. The men were polite and sensitive and asked her to compose herself, but it was plain as anything that they were actually thinking to themselves, typical bloody woman. As soon as hard questions are being asked, she turns on the waterworks. The expressions on their faces say it all. In the description to this video, I give a link to the crucial moments in the hearing. I am not, of course, saying anything as fat-headed as that women are not capable of running a business, or that all women are emotional. But what I am noticing in recent years is that when women are given jobs because it has been decided behind the scenes that it will look good if a woman is given an important job at the head of something, then things seem to have a habit of going wrong very quickly. Choosing people simply because they are women is no more sensible than choosing them because they are men. There have been a few high-profile examples of this in the last few years. Who can forget Cressida Dick, without doubt the worst commissioner of police for the metropolis we have ever seen? She ticked all the right boxes, being not only a woman but also a lesbian, a perfect diversity appointment because the Metropolitan Police thought that having a woman in charge would give them a softer and more approachable image. Oh dear, though, her performance was pretty dismal, to say the least of it. Well, then again, we remember Sharon White, who was a civil servant given the job of being the head of John Lewis. She had no previous experience at all in retail, but she was, of course, a black woman, which looked great in photographs. That's two boxes ticked right there. She trashed the company, though. When Paula Vennells took over at the post office, they were losing about £120 million a year. Now, roughly 500 million, that's £500 million, has been spent on compensation and legal fees, and a further £1 billion has been set aside for future compensation payments. That is 1,000 millions of taxpayers' money down the drain. Losses of 120 million a year? They didn't know when they were well off. Diversity hires are always a lousy idea, whether on the grounds of ethnicity or gender. I've spoken before about the American experience of being desperately keen to have a female fighter pilot, but the story bears repetition because it shows how such things can be quite literally a matter of life and death. On the 25th of October 1994, a woman called Cara Spills Holtgreen was killed as she attempted to land a fighter plane onto an American aircraft carrier on a routine training mission off the coast of San Diego. Holtgreen had achieved fame briefly in the newspapers for becoming the first woman fighter pilot in the American Armed Forces. Her accomplishment was the subject of controversy, though, after her death, for it was alleged that there was political pressure on both the Air Force and Navy to produce a female pilot in order to demonstrate that there was no sexism in the armed forces. Rumours, which were later confirmed, suggested that men were overlooked for qualification so that the Navy could produce a female fighter pilot. Holtgreen had failed her first test, and there were those who said that she was not of sufficiently high calibre to be a pilot landing aircraft on the decks of an aircraft carrier. There was also a suspicion that the Navy had rushed the process of allowing Holtgreen to qualify because they were determined to beat the Air Force in having a female fighter pilot. There is, I fancy, a moral there for us to consider.